there's something that I find really interesting. It's called hedonic adaptation. And essentially, like, after about 2 weeks, you kind of reach your base level of happiness that you were at. So if you go buy a new car for, it fluctuates a little bit, but for a couple of weeks, you're super pumped. You have this awesome car. It's really cool. And then after about 2 weeks, it doesn't give you anything more. It doesn't do anything for you. It gets you from your Mustang drives just as far and just as legally at the speed limit as my Ford Focus does, except I pay a lot less money for it. And I promise you, if you're going to try and impress a girl, like, it's not going to be with the Mustang.
Welcome to the Military Bottom Line Podcast, where we learn from veterans and those currently serving how to make the most out of a military contract. We're here to motivate, inspire, and help you leverage your service to positively impact you professionally, personally, and financially during your military career and beyond. What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to episode 29 of the Military Bottom Line Podcast. Super stoked it's made it this long, and super stoked to have Brian Koons on the episode today. Brian saved over $50,000 in his first Marine Corps contract, and in his second contract, bought a property in San Diego worth over $1.2 million. He now uses it for house hacking as he works as a drill instructor in San Diego, and he's killing it. He's got large aspirations and is really using the Marine Corps to put himself ahead financially at the young age of 24 now. So he's got a lot of good info, got a lot of good, experience, and I think he's a good example for young Marines who are trying to get ahead financially and using their military contract to do that. So I hope you guys enjoy the show. Hey, Brian, thanks for coming on today.
What's going on? Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, your name has come up a couple times as I've been doing this podcast things, and read your article that you did for From Military to Millionaire on your massive savings rate for your first contract in the Marine Corps, and I'm like, dang, this guy's killing it.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah,
dude, I want to kind of fill in a little bit of backstory as I get to know you, the listeners get to know you, a little bit like where you're from and how'd you end up joining the Marine Corps?
Yeah, so I grew up, born and raised in Ohio, lived in the same house my whole first 18 years of life. My brother actually joined the Navy about 2 years before. He was 2 grades ahead of me, so he joined right out of high school. And that was kind of like at that point where I started trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my own life and things like that. And I was in band all throughout my my high school and middle school career and everything like that, and ended up kind of looking at the military, and I was like, oh, the military has bands. Like, this is kind of something that is kind of like the one thing that I was a little bit better at overall than the majority. So I was like, okay, how can I kind of make both of these work? Because my brother joined, and I just kind of saw, like, I kind of understood the whole concept of, like, do the military and you don't have, college debt and things like that, and kind of doing something more than what the majority do. And so, started looking at, I basically talked to, the Navy recruiters, because that's where he was at and everything, kind of fell toward the Marine Corps. And I just remember walking into their office one of the days and was like, hey, I want to join the Marine Corps, but I also want to be in the band, which in their mind is like unreal, because like it's so hard to find people who want to be in the band that are actually like decent-ish to be able to join. So yeah, I went through the whole process. It took, like, I had to audition for the band a couple of times because I wasn't nearly good enough to begin with. But that whole time I was still like going through the enlistment process and enlisted, and then got into the band after the fact. So that was kind of how it started, was just going through the whole process of enlisting, doing the auditions to get into the band for the actual contract. And then I was in the DEP program for like almost a year before I was able to join, because it was right when I turned 17 that I enlisted.
Cool. So that's interesting. I've never actually like met anybody that's been in the band, so that's very very unique to me to hear the story, because I didn't know you actually had to. I mean, it makes sense you had to audition for it, but you enlisted before you actually had a band slot. Is that accurate?
Correct. So basically, like, it's just like any other contract, whether it be infantry, admin, aviation technician, like whatever it is. Except it's the only one that you actually have to have like the skill prior to. They just kind of make you better at the schoolhouse instead of like teaching you the skill. Gotcha. So you have to show like a certain level of proficiency on whatever instrument, which mine was, tuba at the time.
Okay.
That ended up, like I said, it took me a couple of times to meet that proficiency mark over the course of, 5-6 months of practice, like nonstop to get that spot. And then once I did, instead of being open contract, I signed the musician contract instead.
Interesting. So, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Very cool. And so, what do you play now? Right. It started as one instrument and now it is.
So I played tuba the whole time that I was in for my first enlistment. And now I'm currently a drill instructor over at MCRD San Diego. So
awesome. Yeah. Very also curious about that. So you're on your second contract right now.
Correct. Yeah. I just hit 6 years, the other in September.
Okay. So. And so that usually at reenlistment, people to pick kind of like a B billet, a temporary assignment. Did you pick drill instructor or did you get volunteered for that?
No, I did pick it. And the big part of the reason, and this will kind of give a backstory of just, my thoughts on a lot of things, was being in the band. I like I said, I wanted to be in the band because that was kind of something that I was better at than the majority, but I also wanted to be in the military. Joined the band and it was great. Like there was a lot of good opportunities that were there and there was a lot of fun experiences that I had, but the majority of the work was just very monotonous and, it was a lot of ceremonies and retirements and things like that, I found in my, younger years that I thought that the way that I wanted to find fulfillment in life was through the job. And I wasn't finding that through the band. So in my mind, I thought that if I'm single, I'm young, I just turned 24 in June. I have this opportunity now where if I volunteer to go do a B billet, which I kind of looking at it from the outside in thought the drill instructor would be the best bet or the best decision for me personally.
Yeah.
If I can go do that now while I'm young, keep a little bit less of the stress on an older body, get it out of the way while I'm single and all these things, maybe I'll also be able to find that fulfillment that I'm looking for through being a drill instructor. And so that's kind of how I ended up. And then I also kind of volunteered to come to San Diego instead, which is definitely a little bit nicer weather.
Yeah.
Speaking from experience.
Yeah, no doubt. San Diego's not bad living.
Right. So yeah, that was kind of how I ended up coming over here and, started, this was, 2019, like April is when I started the schoolhouse and then graduated from there in June. So been over here for almost a year and a half now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this is awesome because these are both band and drill instructor are two perspectives that we have not had on the show yet. So I'm pumped to kind of pick your brain, especially because like we're in such a unique time right now with COVID, and I see like people are asking questions, looking on the internet, like, are the Marines still training during COVID? Like, what does this look like? And and I know, like we were talking a little bit before the show, and you mentioned that like Marines are like in hotels doing their quarantine. I mean, are you able to speak much on that as to how, what kind of new recruit kind of expect going in right now?
Yeah. So a lot of it, so what's happening right now is since the pandemic started and everything, they've been doing a 2-week quarantine for recruits. So they'll go to the depot just like they normally would for boot camp, but they'll only get like the bare essentials that they need, like a couple pairs of clothes, toothbrush, razors, things like that. And then they'll get sent to one of the couple hotels that are around the area for 2 weeks. And they're literally there for like 2 weeks in a room with a roommate, maybe two, depending on the situation.
Wow.
And they actually just stay there for those 2 weeks and they have to get through it, which that's honestly 10 times harder than boot camp actually is because of the fact that it's just, I call it the pit of despair because they literally have 2 weeks where they can just see, they're in San Diego, like they can see the outside world and they're just, all they have is a TV. They can use Netflix and everything, but they're just stuck in the room with some dude they don't know for 2 weeks straight.
So they cannot leave like that threshold of their hotel room door for 2 weeks.
Nope. Yeah. And if they do, like they go re-quarantine, like it's absolutely insane.
Gosh.
And then, so yeah, like if they can get through that from there, it's a lot. They go straight to boot camp just like they normally would. So it's now instead of 13 weeks, 15 weeks.
Interesting.
Of boot camp.
Dude,
so
I mean, that takes a lot of mental fortitude. That's basically like, solitary confinement for like 2 weeks straight,
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Are people going crazy? Because I think I would probably go crazy.
The attrition rate is definitely like a little bit higher in the beginning because you would think, I mean, they're at a pretty decent hotel, so you would think that like you're in a hotel, you don't have to do anything except watch TV, like and study and work out a little bit. Like, what's so bad? But yeah, you realize that like they can't interact with the real world. They see life still going on, and they have time to regret the decision. Whereas like normally when you just go to boot camp, it's hitting the ground running. You have 2 weeks to regret everything you just made a decision for 4 years of your life.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we come in as the Marines that are at the hotel. Our job is literally to get them from the hotel to actual boot camp, because we have to talk to them, make sure they're good, make sure they're, in the right mindset and things like that. So that's what what we're doing right now over there.
Gotcha. So like daily, maybe daily, somebody is raising their hand saying, "Hey, I'm over this. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going home." And you try to talk them out of it, essentially, or
essentially, yeah. And we do everything we can to kind of like, "Hey dog, like, you got 2 weeks here. Just watch TV, distract yourself, talk to your roommate, talk to us." They have, resources and things.
Gotcha.
And then just from there, trying to get them to get on that bus and go. And then hopefully they'll, hit the ground running from there and not have time to regret their decision.
So your role as a drill instructor right now is not what it will be when you're back on the depot and like training. You're not screaming in their face. You're like a parent. Almost.
Yeah, it's for the most part. Yeah, where I'm just like, "Hey buddy, come on, it's okay." Like, but obviously, like, they also have the drill instructors there, because we actually have a lot of reservists there now. But they still do specifically have drill instructors for those times where it requires that kind of interaction with the kids that need it.
No sand pits yet, though.
Not yet. No.
Right on. Okay. Yeah, man. So I'm curious, like, what did you hope to get out of the military or the Marine Corps in general? Did you have like specifics that you were hoping to attain or achieve?
So in the beginning, it started off with kind of the, regular, like, I wanted to be better, and I wanted to be a better person and do something bigger than myself and things, and kind of started off like that. And it's been sort of fluid throughout my enlistment and things, because I, originally was planning on getting out after the first enlistment, wanted to stay in because of certain opportunities that I thought may have arisen, and they didn't. They said that the force fitness instructor was becoming a full job and didn't, and that was a whole thing. So, so I re-enlisted, and pretty much, so like I said, I started off with wanting to, I think looking back, I wanted to find fulfillment better than myself. And I didn't find it through the band, because I was looking for it from the band itself.
Yeah.
And then started to see, I just kind of, we were talking a little bit about finances slightly before, and I just, started saving up money, kind of like figuring out my own life. I started getting really into fitness and things like that, which is phenomenal in the Marine Corps specifically, because if you're into fitness and you're in really great shape, like, not only do you have a free gym on every base, you have, people around you that all care about fitness.
Yeah.
And when you are good at fitness, that's like half of what they look at to decide on paper if you're a good Marine or not. So like it all correlates really, really well.
Yeah.
I just kind of started figuring out that like there were a lot of other things that I could get from the military other than just like being part of something greater than myself. Because obviously, like, not to, detract from the band in any way, but it's not, we're not on the front lines fighting, bad guys all day. So,
of course.
So I definitely there was a lot of things that I got out of the military so far that I didn't realize going in that I could get or wanted to get. So,
okay. Yeah. So, your thoughts and your plans kind of change as you learn more, basically. Yeah,
exactly.
Speak to that. Cause when I was reading your article, I'm the 50 grand savings in the first contract. Am I remembering correctly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And dude, that's pretty much unheard of, especially single Marine. Any deployments within the first contract?
No deployments in the first contract. No.
Yeah. So that's that's huge. And so I kind of want to dive into like, how did you achieve that, and how can somebody else achieve that? And it's a big question, I know.
It like I said, I think a lot of it was, I generally, like, growing up, I was always one that, like, when I got $50 for my birthday or something, I didn't want to, I was like, how can I make this last the longest? Like, I want to go buy something. I want to, hit that urge of like spending money, but like, I still want the money when I'm done. So I would go buy, a pack of gum, my mom would always say, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of carried over, because I got, like, as soon as I got out of boot camp, I got to like the schoolhouse, and I just like almost made it a game to save like as much money as I could. Cause we lived in the barracks, we got the chow hall, and like, I didn't have a car at the time. And so I'm like, I got more satisfaction out of like saving money, knowing for something, I didn't know what, but later on down the road, I could use it for something more than what I could have done with it at that point. So started saving up money, and, I just continued throughout, and kind of getting into the fitness thing. Like, when you're super into fitness and you go to the gym at, 4 or 5 in the morning every day, it makes it so you don't go out a lot at night, like late at night, and do the things that spend a lot of money. I was very conscious of my actual, just what I spent money on. And looking back now, it was definitely good decisions, but basically I just tried to make sure that I spent money on things that I actually wanted to spend money on and that I was going to get significant value out of, is kind of how I articulate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just continue to do that throughout. And then being in the band, we travel a decent amount, probably, 5 to 10 times a year. We would get couple $100 here from this trip, $200 from that trip. And I would always just kind of save that, because I didn't need it. I would just put it into savings and everything like that. And yeah, like 50 grand, like it was kind of that, that round number that I hit probably right around the 4-year mark. But that was really, like, looking back now, there were a lot of things that I could have done differently to actually, like, probably substantially save more, probably closer to like 75 to 100 if I really tried.
Yeah. I mean, hindsight's 2020, but
right. But yeah, it really wasn't that hard, honestly. Like, there's just certain, like, just don't spend money on like stupid stuff. Like being a single Marine, like, even when I had a car, you get free housing, you get good pay if you don't buy a Mustang and pay $700 in insurance and all those stupid things that we all want to do. But yeah, if you just don't do those, it's super easy to save, like, $1,000 a month, and $1,000 a month over 4 years is $48,000. Like,
simple as that. Yeah. So I mean, I noticed you said you didn't have a car at the beginning, right?
I didn't. So I graduated I started my schooling in January, and I bought a car in May. So there was only like a 5 months. So I've had a car for almost 5 out of the 6 years, or over 5 out of the 6 years of my enlistment so far.
Okay. I wasn't quite sure how long that timeline was, because a lot of Marines, like, once they hit the fleet, or once they have that opportunity to have a car, they're going to quickly run to a dealership and, like, buy something that they shouldn't be buying.
Yeah. And I did, like, I'm not going to lie. I literally, as soon as we got our orders, so I knew that I wasn't going to, like, Okinawa or something. I went and bought a car, but, I looked around, I looked for a good deal. I went and bought a certified pre-owned car instead of like a brand new Mustang. So, I have a little Ford Focus. I still drive it. Like, I've had it, for almost 6 years now.
Nice.
And has almost like 60,000 miles on it now. Drives fine. Like, completely paid off. So there's definitely ways.
What kind of advice would you give to a new Marine or soldier, whatever, whatever branch you're in, hitting the operational fleet, and they're looking to buy a car? I mean, like, and maybe they're looking at that Mustang or that Camaro.
Don't. That's like the number one advice. There's something that I find really interesting. It's called hedonic adaptation. And essentially, like, after about 2 weeks, you kind of reach your base level of happiness that you were at. So if you go buy a new car for, it fluctuates a little bit, but for a couple of weeks, you're super pumped. You have this awesome car. It's really cool. And then after about 2 weeks, it doesn't give you anything more. It doesn't do anything for you. It gets you from your Mustang drives just as far and just as legally at the speed limit as my Ford Focus does, except I pay a lot less money for it. And I promise you, if you're going to try and impress a girl, like, it's not going to be with the Mustang. So that's kind of my advice. Just get something cheap, fuel efficient, that, runs decently, that you can trust.
Yeah. Hedonic adaptation. I like that.
Hedonic adaptation. Yeah.
Is that something that you, you kind of bleed over into the rest of your life too? Like, you're always considering that, and as to where that happiness curve levels off?
I definitely do. Like, that's kind of where that, is it going to provide me, significant value? Like, what I mean by that is, like, if I buy this, is my life going to be better for it in 2 weeks, a month, or whatever? Like, I try and really, like, be conscious of the things that I buy and everything, because it just, when you buy things, just don't think about it. Like, I still make this mistake. Like, I'll buy a shirt that I like, oh, this is a cool shirt. And then, like, sits in my drawer for a year and I've never even worn it again, and things like that. And then I'm like, well, I just could have just saved that $20 and spent it on, a dinner with friends or something like that. Like, something that actually is going to be better for me in the long run. And that's one of my things. Like, if you can find something that, looking, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months out, it's going to be pretty comparable. Buy the cheaper thing that is going to give you just about the same effect, and take that money and put it into something that is going to give you the delayed gratification of better, more substantial.
Yeah. I like that. That's I never had like a term for it, but that thought process in my head. So I appreciate you giving me that term that I can actually like apply and know what I'm thinking. That's good, man. You look for value, and you're careful as as to what you purchased. And you know, as in the background, I'm seeing this kitchen, and I know that you just bought this fourplex in San Diego, right?
Correct.
Which is like, I mean, if anybody knows the San Diego market, a fourplex in San Diego limits is not cheap, and it's like a massive purchase. What made you do that? I mean, most people would think that's a huge risk, you know, paying that kind of money for a property in San Diego, and would quickly shy away from, you know, making that step. So
right. Yeah. So it all kind of like bleeds together, like you were saying. So pretty much like I'm a big believer in like just signs that something's meant to happen kind of thing. So sergeants don't normally get BAH when they're single, which I'm a sergeant right now.
Yeah.
And when I got to drill instructor school, so last April, there's a guy that comes and talks to us there about using the VA loan just to buy a house. And he gave like a very brief little like 1 minute synopsis of like why buying a property as an investment property and living there for a year is like a really smart idea. And it was only like a minute long, but that's like that little nugget that I got out of that whole thing, because I, you know, didn't have BAH. It didn't really apply to me other than that.
Yeah.
But I started, you know, I took that little seed, and I was like, okay, that real estate sounds kind of interesting. I was like, maybe that's kind of the avenue that all this money that I've been saving, maybe that's what I can do with it. And so I read a book on real estate and ended up not really having much time once the actual cycles actually started.
Sure.
Just very time intensive being a drill instructor. But over the course of the next about year until April of this year, I read probably like 3 books, and that was it. And from that point, I was sold. Like I was sold on real estate. Like when I get the chance, I need to buy a property and do it as a house hack where you live in one, rent out the others, and have them pay down your mortgage kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so COVID hit, and the kids started getting quarantined, and the barracks that we have at MCRD San Diego, they needed to use. They were like, we need these rooms. So all of the sergeants go find somewhere to live. We'll give you BH.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, this is cool. Like now I can start looking and everything. But then on top of that, I started working at this hotel where the schedule is much less intensive than active drill instructoring.
Yeah. So,
you know, getting BAH, having more free time to be able to study and everything, I was like, if I don't take advantage of this now, I'm an idiot. So, you know, so this was mid-April when they told us to get out of the barracks, and I was out by April 23rd. I rented a place with my buddy. It was kind of like a month-to-month lease kind of thing.
Sure.
And then ended up in May starting to reach out to agents on Bigger Pockets, started to reach out to people, and started making offers in June. And then this offer on this place, I think, got accepted like June 5th or something.
Wow.
I only made like 8 or 9 offers. And then
were they all for fourplexes, or I mean, how many were you looking for?
Actually, no, it was the other way. So I started at duplexes, and I didn't really realize that these were problems at the time, because in 2020, they took away the loan limit for VA loans. As long as you qualify, like as long as the underwriter and the loan officer say that you qualify, you can make the offer. And I didn't know this. So I started looking at duplexes that are probably around like about 500 to 600,000 in the San Diego area, and would just send, you know, the lender a property and be like, yeah, you qualify, go ahead and make an offer or whatever. And I was struggling to find a duplex that worked, because I was just essentially looking like, if I ran the numbers very conservatively, I could qualify for the loan and live for free. That was the goal. Like I just wanted to live for free with conservative estimates.
Yeah.
And duplexes, like I just could not find one that would work. So I ended up seeing like a triplex that I was like, oh, there's 3 units here. Like this actually sort of works. And sent it to the lender. He was like, yeah, you're good. And, you know, so we made an offer. And of course there was like 9 cash offers the same day for it.
Yep.
And, you know, I looked at 2 or 3 more triplexes, and then I saw like a quad, and I was like, oh, these numbers work even better. And I didn't really realize that like the qualifying was that I was like, if I'm running it with conservative estimates, then the underwriter is running it with conservative estimates. So as long as it works with me, it's probably going to work with them. And
sure.
And yeah, so, you know, there were like 2 quads on the same day that I saw that ran the numbers. I'm like, these work, got pre-approved for them and made the offer. And one of them was this one, and was able to close. Wow. So yeah, this was, you know, a couple weeks, a month of like learning and analyzing, talking with people, and then closed on it.
Which is, dude, I mean, like the turnaround time from like kind of getting that, you know, nugget from that guy talking about the VA loan to actually making a massive purchase was pretty quick. And I'm curious, you said you read 3 different books. Can you recall which 3 those were?
Yeah. So the first one was investing in rental real estate, property by Brandon Turner, whatever
Sure.
the name of it. Rich Dad Poor Dad was the second one,
Yep.
and then the House Hacking Strategy by Craig Kurloff. So
Awesome.
those are kind of like the three books that I always would recommend to people now. Is Rich Dad Poor Dad, Set for Life by Scott Trench, and then the House Hacking Strategy are like the three staples that I pretty much tell anyone asking about it. Go read those, and you'll know like every question you need to ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's awesome, man. So what, and the other question I had was that oftentimes, like, hopefully I don't know, it's not looking very temporary anymore, this whole COVID thing, but like them giving you BAH, did they say you're going to get this indefinitely? Like you now rate this forever kind of thing? Or were you concerned about it being a temporary thing?
So pretty much, I kind of was concerned about it being a temporary thing. And my thought on it was, well, if they give it to me, they tell me to go find somewhere to live, and I found somewhere to live. And now if they try and tell me to come back to base, I can hopefully very easily justify, like, I own, over $1 million property. Like I need this BAH. And then my kind of thought on it now, and I don't know if this is exactly like the best thought process to have, but sure. I'm like, if they don't give me BAH anymore after they told me to buy this property, and I somehow lose it or go bankrupt or whatever, that's on that sergeant major or that CO who told me no. So they don't want to be, they aren't going to want to be responsible for that. So they'd rather, most likely, I would think, give me the BAH and kind of let me do it on my own.
Yeah.
So
one of those things that's like, there's risk, but the potential outcome on the positive side is pretty big, and it's easier to ask for forgiveness and permission kind of thing, like figure it out as you go. So I'm all about it. I'm all about it. I think it'll work out well for you.
Yeah. And the other thing that I forgot to mention with it and kind of how it all tied together was like the way that I was able to kind of qualify for something like this is because I had like that really good credit score from saving and being responsible with my money. Yep. And then you do need a pretty substantial amount in reserves. You need about 6 months of reserves. And with a property this expensive, the mortgage is very expensive. So you needed to have like, the mortgage is like over $6,000 a month on it. So I needed 6 months of reserves for that. So if I didn't, if I wasn't conscious in the beginning, I wouldn't have been able to qualify for this. But being conscious for an extended period of time, expecting the delayed gratification to come into effect, this is kind of like the proof of that working in the long run, even if I didn't know specifically that this is what it was going to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. So because you used the VA loan, it was 0 down, right?
Correct. Yeah, I actually, it was funny. So I got a lender's credit for the majority of the closing costs, and it ended up being about $800 out of pocket for like everything for it. But then I ended up getting a $1,400 check from the seller because we closed a couple days early. So he gave me a credit for every day that he closed early. So I ended up making $600 closing this place.
Wow.
Which is absolutely insane.
Yeah, dude, that's wild. Okay. So did you wrap like closing costs and stuff into the purchase price then? It's like it was literally didn't cost you a dime to get in.
Yeah, no, it was actually like a lender's credit. Like just they put money into the deal for me to cover closing costs, and it only ended up being 8. I don't know how it works specifically. I didn't really ask. Like, I don't know. It was like just they're paying for it. I'm not even gonna ask questions. So that's kind of how the end results came out for it. So
that's wild, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What lessons has it taught you? I mean, in this short amount of time and making such a massive leap that most people would like, dude, they just wouldn't be willing to take that jump, what have these lessons taught you? And like, are you glad that you took that leap?
So I definitely have learned a lot of lessons so far. Number one, make sure that you completely screen your tenants and that the tenants that are in, if they don't meet your requirements, do not renew the lease with them, even if they're paying rent. I can speak from this because I've been here since July, and I'm currently going through the eviction process with somebody right now.
Oh man.
So that's been, like I said, it's lessons learned. And then the other thing is I think it was Brandon Turner who coined it, was the wife test. Like if your wife wouldn't walk through the neighborhood, or if you wouldn't feel safe with them, don't buy the property. I don't care how good of a deal it is, because it's just gonna be more problems than it probably will be worth.
Yeah.
And this place does not pass that test. So looking back, I probably wouldn't have purchased it. I'm happy that I did now, but looking back, I probably wouldn't have as an owner occupied one per se. And then the third thing would say is a term called functional obsolescence. So if things are strange about the property, like for example, if the driveway is facing a weird way, or if it's awkward to get into the property or things like that, or if it doesn't have air conditioning, or just random things that you would think like a property would have that it doesn't. Be conscious of those. Not saying don't buy it, but don't, like, for example, mine's has a very small area for parking, which makes it a little bit less appealing. It's very close to the freeway and some homeless population around the area. So definitely just kind of those things, lessons learned for, the next property. But in all, like, this is obviously a good investment for the long term. Just in the short term, it's kind of good lessons learned for next time.
Yeah. I mean, on the first purchase, like, my wife and I are house hacking on a duplex, and the first purchase, it's like, you're going to learn these lessons. You're going to learn them one way or another, and that's, like, honestly, that's half the fun of it all is learning as you go, and, like, being able to chalk all these things up to experience and lessons learned.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be good stories. Like, once it's all said and done, like, yeah, back on the first property, like, everything hit the fan right away and got it all out of the way. So
yeah. Got it all out of the way so you don't do it again. Hopefully, at least,
Right. Yeah.
I'm curious, because, like, it's definitely something I think about now that, doing the house hacking things. Like, would you, I mean, I don't want to say ever, but would you buy a single family? I mean, or are you, like, permanently, until that forever home, going to be looking at multifamilies?
I think I'm always going to be looking at house hacking, whether that be a single family home that I house hack or with an ADU on it or something. Like, I think it's very intelligent to have some sort of additional income coming in to offset or pay for whatever. Like, I think that everyone gets this, American dream mindset of, I have to have a house on the prairie with no neighbors around forever. And then once I have that, I'll be happy. But, like, a lot of the things that I hear are just people, who don't want to have neighbors or whatever. I'm like, well, first of all, you probably have neighbors to begin with. The only difference is you now get to choose them. And so that's kind of my thought is, like, I don't know if I'll ever get to a point where I just want to settle down and I'm not willing to make some sort of sacrifice until, like, I truly just, like, I don't need it kind of thing. Like, I think that it's always good. And then for me, I also enjoy, like, I have I actually have 3 roommates right now. And I love it. Like, I talk to them, I'm friends with them, they're good. It's good interaction. Like, it makes me a better person because I learn from more people.
Yeah, no doubt. So you have 4 units. 3 of the units are leased out, rented, but you're also renting the bedrooms within the unit that you're renting?
Correct. So all of them are 3 bedrooms. All 4 units are 3 bedrooms. So I actually have one of the rooms rented out to someone, and then I have the other room rented out to 2 people. So I'm actually, off those 2 rooms, I'm actually making more than I'm making from one of the other units. Wow. Like, for all 3 of the rooms rented out. Wow. Because they just rent it out as a whole. So yeah, definitely it's more aggressive approach. I have roommates. I don't, like, even if I didn't have the roommates that I have now, I'd still be paying probably about the equivalent to a room rented in anywhere in San Diego, but I'd have, a 3-bedroom, 1-bath unit instead. But I chose to rent out by the rooms, a little bit more aggressive style. And it's, when I'm not evicting someone, it should be cash flowing about, $500 to $700 a month.
A month. So you're not only living free, but when it goes well, when the eviction's over, you'll be making $500 to $700 a month.
Yeah. So that's with the property management, with my utilities paid, with the washer and dryer finance that I got. Like, so kind of a very broad way to put it. Like, the more you buy, it's like buying in bulk, the cheaper it gets. Yeah. So that's kind of why I noticed, like, duplexes didn't work, but tri started to, and then quads completely worked.
Sure. Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Right on. So, you're early on in your drill instructor stint. What do you have hopes and expectations for the remaining, years of your career? Do you expect to do 20? I mean, how do you kind of see your new real estate thing affecting, like, your military career as to how you move forward?
So I definitely, I've toggled with it throughout pretty much my entire career so far. Cause, like I said, I was planning on getting out the first one and then stayed in for some reasons, and then stayed in, went to be a drill instructor and stuff. And getting into the real estate thing now, I started to realize that I don't think that I'm personally going to find the fulfillment that I'm looking for in life from the Marine Corps. I just personally, I don't think that's where I'm really going to, like, be the most successful in my own personal life, which may be selfish, but it is what it is. And so I'm getting out most likely after this next enlistment and really just diving into real estate in some way, but with the end goal and intention of having, the financial freedom or a job that allows me for freedom of time and freedom of location. So I can go travel the world, go kind of find where I fit. Cause I don't know yet. I really don't know like what that end goal is yet, but I want to be able to go find it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's something that, when we're young and we're first joining, and there's all kinds of quotes to back this, thought process up. It's like, if you're looking for a meeting, join the Marine Corps. And it's like, well, yeah, it's a good place to start. But, if it doesn't give you that whole life meaning that you thought it would when you were 17, 18, when you signed up, like, it's okay to move on and to find something else,
Yeah.
Because there's no guarantee, just try new things and eventually you'll find what it is that you are passionate about. But it's
right. Yeah. I'm a big proponent that everyone should do like an enlistment. I think it does. It gives you a lot of advantage against someone who just goes to college. You get a lot of financial benefits, a lot of personal development benefits, travel benefits.
Yeah.
You get so much more experience than so many people do who just go to college near the town that they're from and then go back and get a job there. Like I always think that people should do at least one tour.
For sure.
So,
I mean, at 24, you've been making money since you were 18. And like, if you went to college at this route, you would not be owning over $1 million property in San Diego. Right. Like there's no chance of that happening if you were to go the traditional route. So yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But,
I mean, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's maybe considering joining or currently, in and new to the fleet?
Yeah, I think that number one, do it. I think that everyone, obviously there's certain circumstances, but if you can, I do think that everyone should do at least one enlistment for the experience, whether that, I don't know what job it is, whatever fits you the best or whatever. But I do think that it can be beneficial for everyone. And I think that everyone should think about doing it. So,
yeah. So you have no regrets with it then?
I don't. I know that I wouldn't be where I'm at and knowing what I know now if I didn't do it. So I'm very happy with everything that I've had so far, and I don't regret anything. It's now gotten me to the point where I know sort of where I'm going now.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And I think like you said, trying new things and just do it, and then you learn along the way and you can kind of redirect like where you want to go based on what you've learned and the experience that you've learned. And if you don't learn anything along the way, like at least hopefully you save some money, but you're going to learn.
Exactly. Yeah. Worst case.
And you're going to be able to adapt and kind of, find your way. So, and that's all we're trying to do is find our way and find what makes us tick,
Exactly.
But yeah, man, I appreciate it. As some closing questions, I like to give people some perspective on like, the good and the bad of the military. And so like, if you have, your most, your favorite day in the Marine Corps versus your least favorite day in the Marine Corps to kind of paint that picture.
Yeah.
What's that look like?
So being in the band, we get to travel quite a bit, and there were definitely some really cool trips. And one specifically that stood out was I actually in 2018 I got to go. We played at Ground Zero for 9/11, and we were there like on 9/11. Got to play, and all the fire departments and all the police departments all were just there listening to us, and it was this super solemn moment that you could tell just the people there, like it made them feel a way that nothing else could make them feel. And it was so satisfying and so fulfilling, knowing that I played a part in that.
Yeah.
And then, from there, so that's one of those really, really good moments. And there were a couple of those that really was just, I just looked and I was like, this is cool. I'm really happy.
Yeah.
But then there's just always kind of these down moments where you're like, the people over you, especially when you're lower rank, and I think it just kind of continues throughout. They have such a control over the environment that you're in that one day, I could have an awesome officer who makes everything sunshine and rainbows, and I absolutely love it. And then they change over, and a week later, everything is hell because this dude does not know what he's doing. He's a horrible leader, and it can make, so it's very make or break dependent on the people you're around and the people that are around you.
Yeah.
So I kind of would always attest it to, like, if this is, your first enlistment, it's constant, like, this is great, this is awesome. And then it goes down to like, this sucks, I'm getting out and stuff. And kind of wherever you're at near the end of that time where you're starting to reenlist, that's kind of what generally tends to happen. Like I was right at the bottom near the time. And then right at the very end, I started coming back up, and that's kind of why I reenlisted, was because I was coming on that upswing. So yeah, I think it's just wherever you're at on that end of your enlistment is kind of how generally people tend to decide, at least that first one, because then you start to see like, okay, this is not what I thought it was going to be, and I have more than one example of it. I actually have basis to be able to say this now after a second enlistment or whatever it is. So yeah, I think that's kind of how I attest it to, at least. Yeah. So
that's interesting. Cause I mean, I definitely, I think that like the reasons people re-enlist are not the same reasons that they join in the first place, and as you gain that experience, you've lived that 4 years, like those experiences are going to determine whether you re-enlist or not. And it, again, it's okay. Like after 4 years, you probably look at it as more of a job than you do as like calling, maybe. It's not as it's not as emotional as it was at 17, 18 years old, when you're easily swayed by marketing campaigns. But and it's interesting that like you had adequately prepared yourself for a transition out, but you still chose to stay in. And like I see a lot of, like, I've seen a lot of people that like they're nearing that transition line, and they just didn't adequately prepare themselves for that transition out, and so they almost like feel stuck, or like they have to stay in. And so that's something that I try to, like, if people know that that's how it's going to go in the 4 years at the end of their contract, helping them and trying to make them like see that, like, okay, I can start preparing now, and like I won't have my hand forced at the end of the 4 years.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I've kind of seen too, is basically like, if you, and this is kind of how I tested, like if you hit the ground running and do everything you can that first enlistment, and just do not like, I'm not saying don't have friends, don't have a life, but like be very conscious, work hard, like be in great shape, do everything you can to set yourself up financially, job-wise, career-wise, everything like that. That first one, you're up here, and it's so much easier to kind of, I don't want to say skate, but kind of coast the rest of the time. Whereas if you just spend money all the time, you're out of money and you're stuck there, then it's this constant uphill battle the rest of the 20 years trying to catch up. But yeah, if you hit the ground that first enlistment, you have options, and you have the ability to then proceed in a way that is going to be much easier in the long run for you, one way or another, whether you get out or not. So
no doubt. I relate like finances to a GPA. And if anybody's even in high school, nobody really pays attention to GPA in high school, but like in college, like if you just kind of put in more, slightly more than average work, you can keep a strong GPA, and it's not going to fluctuate that much. But if you start off like, goofing off and not really giving it much effort, you're going to start low, and it's going to be so hard to like, dig yourself out of that hole that you've created. And so like savings and kind of life in general, it's like, just put in above average work, and it's going to make things way easier in the long run, rather than, having a hole that you're working yourself out of. But
yeah, no, that's very accurate, because people just, they put in, for life, you generally have to put in a certain percentage anyway. Like say you're putting in 50% just to survive. Yeah. If you put in 60%, you're going to be 90% ahead of everyone else, because you put in that extra 10%, and that's because you're already putting in a percentage. So just put in that extra percentage, and that's going to make everything easier in the long run.
Yeah. And it's so much easier to give that like 5-10% now than it is to like force yourself to give that extra 40% later,
Yeah, it's like teaching an old dog new tricks kind of thing. Like just do it young, do it while you have the time, and it's very pervasive to the rest of your life too.
Yeah, so I love it, man. Awesome, dude. Well, any closing comments or anything like that you'd like to share before we sign off?
No, I think I hit a lot of the things that I feel very strongly about. So I appreciate you giving me the platform to be able to kind of give my 2 cents. So it's cool. I just wish that everyone just be conscious of the decision and be intentful with the things you do in your life. And I think it's just going to carry over to everything.
Awesome. Yeah, I like it, man. Yeah, simple as that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, appreciate it.
What's up, guys? I hope you enjoyed that episode with Brian. Like I said, the episode is chock full of wisdom, experience, and good lessons for you if you're currently in the military, young, and trying to figure out the whole financial game. Brian is definitely one to learn from. If you want to learn more about Brian, you can find him, Brian Koons, on Instagram, or his handle is Koonsinator. So I will link him below if you want to learn more about him. You can reach out if you have any questions. But otherwise, I hope you're following me at Military Bottom Line on Instagram. And we'll see you guys next week. Later.